Abum Hezekiah Nimi Hengwa. Abum Hezekiah Ngwa Kaka, Ngwa Kaka, Abum Ngwa Kaka. Abum Hezekiah Biara Haza. Abum Shijoke Nu Wanka. Hezekiah Shijoka Nu Wa Shijoka Nu Wa Shijoka Nu Wa. Abum Hezekiah Kiha. Abum Hezekiah Nimi Hengwa. Come Hezekiah news ha ha Abum Hezekiah. Abum Shijo Keka Kaka. Abum Shijo Keka no ha. Abum Shijo Koki Keka. Abum Ki Keka. Abum Ki Keka. Abum Hezekiah ki he ha. Abum Hezekiah ni me hangwa. Abum Hezekiah all the glory. Hezekiah Hezekiah. Welcome everyone. Shimoge back again. Yes. You see, I'll just address that there. You see, language is an active process. But when we're speaking, we shouldn't leave behind what we learned when we were sitting. You see, a lot of names that are associated with Christianity were big before that thing was birthed. He, it's a word in my language. Ze, also a word in my language. Ka, and then yeah, or if you want to pronounce it, Hezekiah, all words in my language. And I want to make it clear, the language people call it Igbo now is a subset of a larger language that is not well understood anymore because we don't understand language in general. And also people have closed their brains, and I'll leave it at that. But any sound that is part of a word is a word itself, yes. Because it's not until you've broken something down to the smallest sound that you can say there's only one word there, yes. Hezekiah, Amadio Hankishi. Abum Hezekiah Kiha. Abum Hezekiah Nimeha. Abum Hezekiah Kiha. Hezekiah Hezekiah. Hezekiah Biara also ha. Hezekiah Sharwan Neba. Abum Hezekiah Kiha. Hezekiah Hezekiah. Abum Madu Hiha. Abum Hezekiah Kiha. Anyway, thank you. I haven't shared the stream yet. Let me do that. But before that, and I've registered a viewer. Thank you very much. Every view is a blessing. Before that, I want to, once again, on this Greatest Man Alive segment, this is an important one, give the new people two crucial pieces of information they can use to understand me. First, my given name is Chimoge. And second, the reference point village for my patrilineage is Ojurata. O-R-J-I, comma, U-R-A-T-A. And I think it can also be spelled U-R-A-T-T-A. If you look it up, you'll find it. Anyway, let's get right into it. You see, I as soon as I saw the news about Megan Thee Stallion and Klay Thompson, I wanted to say this, but I wanted to say it right. And I just want to go and say this. Klay Thompson has not become bad at basketball. He's good. You see, I'm just going to go there. I think Klay Thompson is better than Steph Curry. And again, that doesn't mean Steph Curry's bad. I just think it means we don't understand basketball. And I think it's because, one, we don't understand how hard it is to analyze that sport. But two, we also don't understand how the truth usually shows itself when you just look at people's clout and genuine clout. I remember when Steph Curry was first winning his league MVPs, there was a lot of outcry from older analysts and former players. And I'm not calling them older to diss them. I'm just trying to position them relative to other people. There was a lot of outcry saying that he wasn't good enough. And I wouldn't go as far as them, but I could see what they were saying. Klay Thompson was never like in the MVP conversation, but I think in a way that proves he's better because I think certain accolades, uh, people get put up for them because they can be processed. But sometimes greatness cannot be processed. You see what I'm saying? So people see it and they don't want to gather to process it. So they leave it there. But it again, I only really realized this honestly when Klay Thompson's relationship with Megan Thee Stallion went public, because I don't just randomly think about Klay Thompson, but when I think of that iconic Golden State Warriors team, he stands out the most to me. And again, this is a thing for discourse. I know many people disagree. Um, but yeah, I think he was, to the extent one individual can be the spine of a team, I think he was the spine of the team. And I think after he got injured in the 2019 finals, that was a new era. Yeah. Obviously, a lot of the things I'm speaking of are spiritual. Anyway, but let's zoom out now. Klay Thompson is not just his public persona and what he's done on the basketball court. He's a person. You see, what does it mean for a person to get publicly accused of hiding their love life in a way that ends up upsetting their partner? It's happened to him many times, it seems. I've seen multiple names up, some names I didn't even know had associated with him. And I'm not going to name them because this is ultimately a discussion about misconduct. I don't want to besmirch the names of any victims or potential victims before I've done full research. But anyway, um, you know, obviously, playing professional sports is stressful. And not all stress is bad, but I think the stress level is too high. And I think that actually sets the tone for work in the world today. The model of the modern worker is actually a professional athlete. You have to have someone else that tells you what to do, but at the same time, you have to be the head of the greatest man alive. You see, I talk about myself as the head of the greatest man alive, but I'm always thinking of and cognizant of what people think I mean by that. Because you see, the idea people have of the best person in existence is God. The greatest man alive is nowhere near God because God is impossible. And it's good that that's impossible because if God were possible, none of us would exist. You see, the implications of the existence of people is that on any day, anyone can be the greatest, and on any day, anyone can fall. It's just there's this idea of the person who's maxed out the potential of personhood. Yeah, I believe I'm that guy. But I always talk about how big the universe is. If there are billions like me, how am I not a manifestation of the collective will of the people? And whenever I ask for donations, I hope that's proof that I don't think I can just snap my fingers and do whatever I want. And I'll leave it at that, you see. You see, the idea of the head of the greatest man alive is what people are looking for whenever they give out an award for the best athlete. And in modern times, whenever people say that someone's slipping, they're really saying you're no longer the head of the greatest man alive. Let me move. Aboom we ha. Aboom she joke ka. Aboom she joke ka. Wella kadrata. Wella kadrata. Aboom she joke ka. Aboom she joke ka. No. Aboom go she joke ka. She joke ka. She joke ka. Aboom she yama dioga. Aboom she ka. Aboom she ka. Kala kana kara yeah. Kala kana kara Hezekiah. Abumonishi kala kana ka. You see, whenever I say Abumonishi kala kana, I'm doing it for a purpose. This is not kihe. I'm doing it because it helps me move. And I'm also just exploring the phenomenon that goes on in my mind, where I just know that I'm the greatest. But I then look at the concept of a professional athlete who's said to have that mindset. And I'll be honest, it's not my mindset, at least the way I see it manifested. For example, yes, for example, I would never I would never cause a problem in my relationship just to play a game to prove that I'm great. You see, athletes are said to spend time away from their families to play the game. But this is not because they think that if they don't play the game, they'll cease to live, at least as it's typically presented. This is because if they don't play the game, people will say they're bad at the sport and people will say they're worthless. It's because they'll be insulted. But you see, there's no greater insult than the insult one creates for themselves. Now, again, I don't know Megan the Stallion and Klay Thompson's relationship. So, I'm not really going to comment on the inner workings of it. But they publicly declared that they had a relationship. The implications of that is that there was a baseline standard of mutual care. Why would you break that up? You see, Megan the Stallion said he had mood swings during his basketball season. The language she used suggests that one, she thought it was frivolous. And let me say this: any season of sports is different to different people. It could be important for one person and not important for another. You see, I've heard people say Klay is slipping, but I looked up his statistics, which again are not necessarily the greatest metric, but based on those things, in combination with the common standard of the NBA, I wouldn't say he's slipping. I see reports of averaging 11 points a game, and he's in the second half of his 30s. That's a good player, you see. You see, basketball is a team sport. Given what those indicate and what I know of his playing style, that's a valuable player to a team. Now, again, I've been following the Dallas Mavericks. I don't know overall how they're doing or whatever, but, you know, it's a team sport. No matter what's going on, it wouldn't make sense to single out Klay Thompson and say he's not good. And I'll just leave it at that. But at the same time, we have to admit that on an individual level, the way sports manifest, it's really a quest to prove that you're the greatest man alive. And again, you see, I've been exploring the concept. My ancestors told me something. The greatest man alive, as in the head of the greatest man alive, as in Onishi Kawakano, is not just me. And it's not just people like me, when you make it a thing in its fullness. You see, it's also a manifestation of a state of being. The state of being where you were, one, the best person in an existence, and two, that existence reached a certain level. That's a manifestation of the being that conceived my person and the being that's conceived all of the central planets in this universe. And when I say our planet is central, I mean primarily in terms of importance. I mean, we know about positionality and things. But anyway, um, you know, I want to talk about soccer. There's the award, the Ballon d'Or. If someone wins the Ballon d'Or and they deserve it, that's a manifestation of the head of the greatest man alive. You can say in that moment, Hamero Nishi Kalakana, they did the greatest man alive. You see, at least the way the award is structured down. You see, again, I don't know Klay Thompson. Maybe something else is going on, but if he doesn't have something else going on, he doesn't really need to play basketball. You see, that individual quest to prove you're the greatest man alive, it's not necessary for him. So I put out this live stream just to make a point. We have to end this culture of destroying relationships for work. Because at the end of the day, work should not just be a quest to prove something about yourself. It should be about having an effect in life. And if you destroy your relationships, you can't have an effect in life. And that itself is a negative effect. Now, again, the conditions of the relationship between Klay Thompson and Megan Thee Stallion need to be investigated. What actually went on needs to be investigated. But if what she said is true, that needs to be dealt with properly. Let me share the live stream. Kala kanung with a yeah. Kala kanung with a yeah. Kala kanung with a sanso neba. Sanso neba. Sanso neba. Kala kanung with a yeah. Kala kanung with a yeah. Abu Mumadio Hezekiah. Abu Hezekiah. Abu Hezekiah. Hezekiah Karakia. Hezekiah Maria Neba. Abu Mumadio Ning Mengwa. Ning Mengwa. Abu Ning Mengwa. Kala kanu kare ki he ha ha. Kala kanu kare Hezekiah. Abum Hezek ki he ha ha. Hezeki he ha ha. Hezeki he ha ha. Abum Mariu he he ha ha. Abum Mariu he he ha ha. Abum Sansone Bezeka. Abum Ezeka Hezekiah. Hezekiah kare ki he ha ha. Hezekiah mere ki he neba. A boom key ha 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 boom ha 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 boom ha ha ha. Kala kanu kare ki ha ha. Kala kanu zere ibu neba. A boom madiu he ha he ha ha he ha. A boom Hezekiah ki ha ha. A boom Hezekiah biara haza. A boom shiju ke ka shiju ke ka doka wele. Awela doka chijoke ka. Awela doka buchijoke ka. Abum chijoke karaya. Abum karata. Abum karata. Karatenu na karata. Abuma madi he ha. Abuma madi he ha. He ha. He ha. Kala kanu kareki he ha. Kala kanu kareki he ha. Abuma madi he ha. He ha. He ha. Kala kanu kareki he ha. Kala kanu kareki he ha. Kala kanu kareki he ha. He ha. Abumon yishi kala kanu ha. Abumon yishi kala kanu kaka. Abumon yishi kala ki he ha. Kala ki he ha. Kala ki he ha. Kabunam nogo ha. Expanding my lineage so I can talk with more strength. Let me talk more in detail about the head of the greatest man alive. You see, The head of the greatest man alive always has to be an abundant KK, a god of passion, a heat god. And that's crucial because you have to understand the progression of Abara, the gods. You see, we, and I say this knowing that we're not living this long, but I just want to note that one, there are many tales from societies outside of the West indicating that we can live much longer and that our lifespans have decreased drastically. I want you to draw your attention to the story of the Yuga, Yuga, from what is now called Indian culture, such as Hinduism. It tells tales of how over time people went from living for hundreds of thousands of years to, um, what we how we live now. And there's also a concept in Igbo culture of Ugazi, which is similar, or the Uga, which says similar things. The stories I've heard haven't given exact time ages, but it said that over time, the quality. I mean, the stories I heard of that were more vague. I need to go back and look at the source material, but basically, it indicated that over time, really long story short, it says that right now we're not at our peak, so people aren't living as long as they used to. So the primary sources to consult are the Yuga, Yuga, for this piece of information, and then Uga, Uga, which is a variant idea from Igbo culture. Anyway, I also want to draw your attention to scientific research. There one scientist, there's an article on Healthline about lifespan. There's one aging researcher who thinks we can live for thousands of years, and they're at like maybe 3 dozen different theories or more from aging scientists about why we age, and they don't know exactly why we age. That indicates that it's not natural. And then I've seen another report saying that some aging scientists believe we can live for 150 years. And then I just want us all to draw our attention to the reality that the vast majority of people have bad habits and there are bad things that people do. I want to draw your attention to 2 things. One, overwork. People overwork themselves and they start very young. That'll impact lifespan. And 2, ingesting harmful substances, things like alcohol and other intoxicants. People do that, that will harm your health. Let me move. Abuma muddy muddy he ha ha. Abuma muddy harky he ka ka. Abum kaki he ka 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 ki he ka ka ki he ka. Abum he ka ni me. Abum he ka ha. Abum he ki he ha. He ki ha. He ki ha. Abum muddy Anyway, let's speak of the lifespan. My ancestors tell me our max lifespan as a category of life is 300,000 years, and that the minimum one for someone who's reached Adoka, the expansion, the ultimate goal, is 270,000 years. Again, every category of life has different ones. And again, I know that will be up for debate. I accept that. It's just something I've received from Spirit. And I just want to remind us again, receiving messages from Spirit is valid. Another way of saying that is that there's no absolute disproof that spirits exist and or that we can communicate with them. And look at the physical evidence I've given out before. Another way of stating this point is that the ultimate goal, our ultimate state of being, is many, many years away. We're not reaching our max lifespan. But now I want us to draw our attention to a second benchmark, Adal, the ultimate goal, said to be 10,000 years for every category of life. That is the point where you reach the state of being where Unless you are attacked beyond a certain point, you will not perish. You see? So then things like random aging are just not possible. Anyway, why am I bringing this up? I'm bringing this up just to explain more my position on myself. You see, when I say I'm the head of the greatest man alive, I'm not saying that right now as I sit, I'm at my peak. You see, I won't even be at my stability until I reach Adar, that 10,000. And then the peak sometime during Adar Ka, between 270,000 and 300,000. Is the peak not always the last day, the last second of 300,000? But anyway, what am I saying here? I said before that I don't want any crude test of masculinity to be engaged in if someone disagrees with me. And again, people have the right to engage in the process of disagreeing with me. It's just, obviously, I'll have a different opinion. But I'm not going to argue that I'm even meeting all my goals. For example, the biggest one is the ability to play soccer. I haven't played soccer in years. And if I just started now, I don't know if I'd be satisfied. And part of that is just my age. You see, my ancestors have described to me a typical life. And a typical life, until I reach Adar, all of my elders are stronger than me. And that is typical of our category of life. I don't think we understand that people we call old, generally speaking, are actually very strong. They might have a vulnerability in terms of the ability to exert physicality quickly, but when you see the amount of clout they have, that's a manifestation of spiritual strength. And I think when we're healthier, it would manifest physically as well. You see, again, that's not me endorsing the concept of random elder respect. It's in fact the opposite. With great power comes, well, the great potential to fall. And I'll leave it at that. Do not fall. Anyway, what am I saying with all that? You see, if I, as the head of the greatest man alive, can be beaten on any day by anyone, and also I, as the greatest man alive, am nowhere near my peak right now, there's no point in anyone else engaging in contests that are said to be a foregone conclusion. Let me explain more of what I mean. A lot of sports now are set up to be a foregone conclusion, and the winner is said to be a pre-selected person who has to mess with a group of people before they receive the award. Let's look at LeBron James. You see, LeBron James, I would say, since maybe, and again, I was a child when this began, but I'll say since maybe at least 2005, LeBron James has been designated as the head of the greatest man alive in basketball. And the narrative around him is that no matter what, he has to overcome the odds with lesser teammates. So any matchup involving him is seen as validating the concept of greatness based on whether or not he wins. And victory for him involves his team winning while he also does everything. Let me move. You see, this is a very unhealthy dynamic and narrative. Obviously, it's not healthy for LeBron because it puts too much pressure on him, and it's not healthy for his teammates. But I want to draw attention to what it does to his opponents because Klay Thompson has never been a teammate of LeBron. Although, well, I don't know if they've played for the U.S. national team together. I'd have to look at the records. But anyway, at least in the NBA, he's never been his teammate, but he's been his opponent many times. But what does it do to a man if it's said that a victory you were involved in devalued greatness? You see, I know LeBron James has a lot of critics, but because of the way he's been set up, um, I don't think anyone's totally satisfied when he loses. And I think a lot of the criticism around him is that by failing, he's devalued greatness. But again, what does it do to Klay Thompson? It leaves him with a permanent chip on his shoulder. And not just him, but I'm just mentioning him because he's the focus of this. So if someone has a permanent chip on their shoulder and maybe other things are going on, could they become Otunwe? Could they become a one holder? And I know I'm speculating here, but I'm speculating to make a point. When that kind of chip is on your shoulder, will you ever let go? And will you ever just start doing the work of maybe just saying that wasn't what you thought, you see? Because the media narrative is not necessarily the truth. What am I getting at here? I think there's systemic factors that go into this situation we're seeing. At the very least, if not for the broken system of valuing individuals and greatness, we wouldn't have the headline. Klay Thompson mood swings during the basketball season. That is undeniable. We need to do a lot of divination. We need a lot of soccer to work that out. What's going on is a society that we've distorted competition and the valuing of greatness so much that it's very easy for us to believe that someone destroyed a burgeoning family just to prove they're great. Let's move. Abu Neptune, god of the sea. Abu Neptune, 1, 2, 3. Abu 1, 2, 3. Abu 1, 2, 3. Kala Kanu Kara Hezekiah. Kala Kanu Kara Hezekiah. Just singing there, because a lot of times when I get an intense thought, I have to move, and then just think of how to keep expressing myself, and then also just always sitting isn't good. But anyway, um, so the headline indicts us as a people, but then if it's true, it also indicts us further, and that I don't really need to explain. I want to now turn my attention to a crop of people I've seen defending Klay Thompson. I want to name two individuals because they're very famous and powerful. One, Stephen A. Smith, and two, Paul Pierce. And let me move again. Kalakanu karekia, kalakanu warekia naba, abuma madi madi abuma madi abuma kalakanu abuma kalakanu abuma Hezekiah, Hezekiah, I am the captain, I am the captain, Hezekiah. You see, Stephen A. Smith and Paul Pierce have both launched very vile defenses of what they think Klay Thompson did. And I'll just say that because the public hasn't received the full story. And I want to make this clear. This is not to say that Megan Thee Stallion is lying. It's just saying one person cannot tell the whole story themselves if something crazy has happened. Let me go. kalakanu, abumanishi kalakanu, 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 kalakanu karakihe, kalakanu karakihe, kalakanu karakihe, abumamani mani he, abumamani mani he, abumamani mani he, kalakanu karakihe neba, kalakanu karakihe neba, kalakanu mere sansoneba, 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 abumamani mani he, abumamani mani he, abumamani, abumamani he, kalakanu karakihe, kalakanu mere he, abumin gure 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 abumam bari mari abumam bari mari abumam bari mari abumin gure 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 abumin gure 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 abumin gure gure abumingore kore hiya, abumingore mene miya, abumingore kore hiya, abuminjoku kaka, I am an injoku kaka, I am an injoku, abumjoku, abuminjoku joku hiya, abumingore kore hiya, abumingore mene hiya noa, abumingikala kanu kaka, wijikala kaka, wijikala kaka. Onishikala kanu kaka kaka. Onishikala kanu kaka kaka. Abumonishikala kanu Abumonishikala kanu Abumonishikala kie kala kie kala kie. You see, Oha, the people have decided this issue is of great importance, and I agree. I think we don't even fully understand why, but we don't. So when the people have decided something is important, and the initial explosion leans one way, why are Stephen A. Smith and KLAY Thompson so soon to tell Megan Thee Stallion she shouldn't have spoken? You see, I played through Stephen A. Smith's full video, and I don't say this lightly, that was Ella. Let me clear that. You see, uh, uh, ooh, couldn't process it anyway. But what I picked up was that he just thinks problems in romantic relationships be covered. And then Paul Pierce, from part of a video I saw he did, said the same thing, but then also basically insinuated that KLAY Thompson was not taking Megan Thee Stallion that serious. And I should add that to that uku I made earlier on Incoria. You know what I mean if you saw it. KLAY Thompson was not taking Meg Thee Stallion that serious, therefore he did nothing wrong. Ooh, Kalak Hanumere. See, I'm singing a lot. There's a lot of messages coming through my being. But I think all their nonsense boils down to this idea that one, all male individuals must engage in romantic activity as one, and two, that all their activity will be bad. Ooh. Kala kanu mere ka 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 ka. Kala kanu mere yeah. Abu mingore nekezi yeah yeah yeah. Abu mama yeah. Abu mama yeah. Abu mama yeah. Kala kanu mere sanso neba. Kala kanu mere kua neba. Kala kanu gore guihe ha gore guihe ha gore guihe ha. Gore 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 guihe ha. Abu gore gore guihe ha. Abu gore gore guihe ha gore guihe ha gore guihe ha. Abu gore gore guihe ha. Abu gore negezi ha. Abu gore gore guihe ha. Gore gore guihe ha gore guihe ha gore guihe ha. Abu gore gore guihe ha. Abu gore gore guihe ha. Abu gore mere guihe ha mere guihe ha mere guihe ha. Abu munisi kala kanda ha. Abu munisi kala sanso neba. Abu munisi kala guihe ha kala guihe ha kala guihe ha. Abu munisi kala kanda ha. Abum Rafiki Kaka Abum Karafiki Karafiki Karabisi Abum Bisi Kaka Abum Kabisi Nedi Abum Kabisi Nedi Kabisi Nedi Ka Ferrari Ka Abum Ferrari Abum Ferrari Ferrari Otuo Abum I'll be honest. When I work through a lot of these things, I mean, I have it in my mind, but when I say it, it takes on a new meaning, and then sometimes I just have to take a second because that's crazy. But um, that's really the foundation, and obviously it's wrong, but they believe it and they're going with it. So that also has to be investigated. But I just want to say this. Even though I don't know the details of either of their personal connection to KLAY Thompson, obviously both of them are heavily involved with the environment in which he works. Paul Pierce being a former player and then Stephen A. Smith being an analyst. So that seems to indicate that they have some insider information. So if that's how they're choosing to move. Because again, they didn't say he didn't do anything. They just said, don't worry about it. So that indicates that would support the thesis that KLAY Thompson behaved badly, but also it suggests some sort of coordinated effort. Anyway, I'll just leave things at that. Thank you very much. I'll give out a bonus piece. I'll give out 5 bonus pieces of information. First, eat lemon powder. Second, eat beef. Third, eat orange powder. 4, eat peach powder. And 5, get sunlight. Just take all those in. And yeah, please patronize my business and share this with everyone you know. Thank you very much. I'll see you next time. Take care of yourselves as well.